a knight, after being defeated in battle, is reincarnated into a behemoth, one of the most powerful monsters, but with a small drawback. It is a baby and looks surprisingly like an adorable house cat. It is adopted by a beautiful elf whom it decides to protect with all its might. The protagonist wakes up in a cave, not quite knowing how it got there. It tries to remember its past and remembers being struck down by a demon's sword. It deduces that it has been reincarnated. An information screen appears before it, and it discovers that it has been reincarnated into a behemoth, an S-rank creature, so dangerous that it takes entire armies to finish one off. The protagonist feels conflicted, since in its past life it was a knight who swore to protect humanity. It approaches a pond and, seeing its reflection, it realizes that it has an incredibly cute appearance, resembling a simple cat. The next morning, in the nearby town where the mysterious cave is located, a beautiful young elf wakes up. He opens his window and gets dressed to start his day, grabbing a pair of swords and heading out. Returning to our cat, the protagonist looks at his reflection in the pond, pondering the irony of going from a knight to a monster, and wonders how grateful he should be for this second chance at life. Behind him appears a low-ranking monster, clearly intent on eating him. The protagonist searches his skill bar for something to defend himself. He uses rock howling to throw a rock and take out the monster. The protagonist realizes he hasn't eaten since his reincarnation. He smells the defeated monster and decides to taste it, finding it delicious. He begins to eat it. He then discovers that he has the ability to steal skills from the monsters he devours. He also learns that he can use a storage skill to save items and decides to save the leftovers for later. The beautiful elf girl travels to a coliseum where she is allowed entry after showing a badge. Meanwhile, the protagonist continues to defeat and devour all the monsters he encounters, from small dragons to minotaurs, accumulating a wealth of new abilities. The elf enters the coliseum and uses a rock to light up the dark hallways. The protagonist finds a treasure chest hidden in the cave, which excites him, as he never managed to find one in his past life. He opens the chest and discovers a large crystal. Suddenly, the space around him begins to distort, and he is teleported to another location. The protagonist suspects that it might have been a trap and realizes that he is on the back of a ground dragon, another S-rank monster. The dragon, upset at being awakened, begins to attack him. The protagonist dodges it and begins to throw rocks at it, but its skin is too tough, causing the rocks to bounce off the ceiling. The dragon attacks with its claws, and the protagonist uses Iron Body, a skill that hardens his body. The blow knocks him back, breaking the skill and causing significant damage. The dragon is surprised that he was able to withstand the attack, but continues his assault with its tail. The protagonist uses a combination of skills to counterattack and escape through a hole in the ceiling created by the bouncing rock. The elf girl explores the halls of a dungeon, remembering how, as a child, an elf saved her from an attack by a monster. The protagonist eventually reaches the halls of the dungeon, trying to reach the surface, but is too injured to continue, believing it might be the end of his second life. Fortunately, our beautiful elf of great feelings finds him while exploring the halls and decides to help him. The protagonist wakes up in a comfortable bed, covered in bandages. The elf enters the room with a tray of food, delighted to see the little cat awake. The protagonist, seeing her, is stunned by her beauty and thinks she must be an angel. The elf tells him that she was very worried about him and that she doesn't understand what a kitten like him was doing in a dungeon. The protagonist realizes that she hasn't realized that he is a monster and thinks that he is a normal cat. For the next few days, the elf takes care of the kitten, feeding him, sleeping with him, and tending to his wounds until he is fully recovered. One morning, the girl leaves for work. The protagonist reflects on everything the elf did for him and decides to accept her as his master and protect her with his life. He sneaks out the window and follows her to the dock, where a canoe is ready to take her to the dungeon. He manages to hide without anyone noticing. The cat follows the elf through the dungeon, avoiding being seen. She knows that her mistress is in great danger, especially for being a woman, and prepares to act if necessary. The elf girl encounters a group of goblins and, with incredible speed, easily defeats them. The protagonist is amazed, having never seen someone so fast, but also notices that their large swords hinder her movements. Another goblin reveals itself. Despite having fulfilled her quota, The elf girl refuses to retreat and insists on continuing the battle. The protagonist realizes that this is bad because the goblin is not an ordinary one. He is a wizard. The goblin casts a fire spell and the girl freezes in fear. The protagonist rushes in and manages to get her out of range of the attack. She wants to fight, but cannot use her skills as it would reveal to her mistress that she is not a simple cat. So she just scratches the goblin's face, who recoils in pain and falls down the stairs. The elf girl is surprised to see her cat and wonders what he is doing there. They leave the dungeon, and the elf places the kitten on her chest and pets it, thanking him for saving her. The protagonist feels like he is in heaven. They head to the Adventurers Guild, where everyone envies the cat resting on his chest. An adventurer named Kazman greets the elf, who we now know is called Arya. Kazman asks her to consider joining his party, but Arya once again tries to politely decline. Kazman insists and tries to touch Arya, but his cat jumps off his chest and bites Kazman's hand. The man screams and struggles to shake off the cat, while the protagonist thinks to himself that this will teach him to respect his master. Kazman manages to shake the cat off of him, but not before the cat scratches his face and then returns to Arya's chest. Angered, Kazman draws his sword, but is stopped by someone who asks if he thinks it is wise to brandish a weapon in the guild. It is Arnaldo, a former B-rank adventurer, who now works as the guild's receptionist. Intimidated by Arnaldo, Kazman lies, claiming he has something urgent to do, and flees the scene. Arya thanks Arnaldo for his help, and he tells her to let him know if Kazman bothers her again. Arnaldo also notices Arya's new companion, and comments on how protective the cat is of its owner. Arya tells him that her cat has saved her twice that day, and decides to keep him, and names him Tama. This makes the protagonist very happy, as it means he can keep it for the rest of his life. Arya hands the elf ears to Arnaldo, proving that she completed her mission. They go to celebrate at a restaurant, where Arya drinks a few too many. Tama starts getting ready, and Arya accuses him of being cruel for ignoring her. Tama notices that Arya has a penchant for drinking, and becomes a little more inhibited when she does so. Arya warns him that if he keeps ignoring her, she won't let him bathe with her. She puts Tama in her basket and heads to the baths. Tama tries to remind himself that he's an honorable knight and resists the idea of entering the women's bathhouse, but he fails. While Arya prepares for her bath, Tama remembers that he is a knight and wants to refuse to enter the women's bath, but it's useless. Once inside, he tries not to look too much at his master, but the current makes it impossible and pulls him closer to her. Arya looks somewhat sad and asks Tama if he thinks she could ever become strong enough. She confesses that years ago, demons attacked her homeland, but someone came to their rescue, Alicia, the sacred sword, the elf who saved her as a child. Since then, Arya vowed to one day become as strong as Alicia and protect those in need. Tama recognizes the name and knows she's a famous elven heroine. Another day, Arya goes to the guild with Tama, where Arnaldo greets them and warns it's a bad day and advises them to leave. But it's too late. Kazman appears to greet them. Tama immediately gets on guard, but Kazman shows an order from the Baron stating that the creature that injured him must be put to death. Arya is devastated and pleads for mercy, but Kazman tells her it's distasteful to revoke orders already issued. He offers to settle the matter with a duel. If Arya wins, Tama can live, but if she loses, Kazman will take her as his wife. Arya has no choice but to accept the duel. That same night, they head to an arena, where Arnaldo announces the fight between Kazman, a C-rank adventurer, and Arya, a D-rank adventurer. Kazman acknowledges the disparity in their abilities and agrees that someone can help her. He calls for a volunteer from the audience, but no one steps forward. The only one willing to fight alongside Arya is Tama. Arnaldo confirms this and asks Arya if she accepts him as her partner. The girl hesitates, but Arnaldo says Tama is a true knight in shining armor. Kazman mocks the cat and agrees to fight both. Tama is ready to make him pay for making his mistress cry. Arnaldo starts the battle, and Tama immediately charges at Kazman. Kazman mocks him again and swings his sword, but Tama easily dodges. Tama knows he won't be able to defeat him without using his skills. Arya attacks using her acceleration ability, but Kazman dodges and kicks her in the stomach. Kazman notes her speed but remarks it's all she has. Arya throws some daggers, but Kazman blocks them with his cape and then counters with his sword. Arya manages to block his attacks with her blade but struggles to keep up. Kazman taunts her, saying her heavy swords are unsuitable and joking that a kitchen knife would suit her better. Tama watches helplessly as Arya is disarmed, knowing he could defeat Kazman in one blow if he used his abilities. Kazman is about to declare himself the winner when Tama steps in, using his iron body skill to shatter Kazman's sword. Tama then unleashes a wind attack, sending Kazman headfirst into a tree, where his weapon strikes his groin. Everyone is stunned, wondering what just happened. Tama accepts that everyone will now know he's a monster, and that they might eliminate him. But he's okay with it since he was able to protect his mistress. Arnaldo and Arya realize Tama understands human speech and can use skills, concluding he must be an elemental cat. Everyone is thrilled, and Tama can't believe how mistaken they are. Arya is declared the winner. Hey, if you made it to this part of the video, don't forget to write the word Exquisito in the comment section. Thank you so much, and see you in the next video.